Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of MGR Unplugged. Recording on Thursday. What's today? It's the
September 26th
of September. Just to give a little context, because we know this podcast could be
1:30 p.m.
Okay, David, I haven't even introduced you yet. So what are you talking?
I'm a ghost talking.
Okay, ghost talker. Anyway, so it's September 26th, 2019.
12,000?
2019.
It's a little far away.
Well, we're discussing a little bit of the future today, so that's.
I can't predict that far ahead.
You can make predictions about the future.
I think that's 10,000 years. Isn't civilization only like 10,000 years old?
I don't know. We're going to discuss it. I think you just had some kind of crystal ball or something that gave you some information. Anyways, welcome to the show. As you can tell, we don't really have a marketing topic in mind today, even though it could be applied to marketing as well. But I actually wanted to talk to David, or with David, and basically share the podcast with a few ideas based on a few books that we've read over the summer months. We always like to share the books that we read, and I actually have read quite a few actually over the summer, between books and audiobooks, and I think I probably had like 7 or 8 books I can think of since the last 2-3 months. So that's pretty good, considering that I also read a lot of articles and blogs and things like that. So David has read a lot too, I think. Well, at least he fixed it very well with his Kindle walking around all day. But before we get to that, David, I know that last week we announced our newest podcast in the family of MGR Edge, and this one is called the E-commerce Edge, which just went live, I believe, yesterday.
Is that it's every Tuesday it goes live. The first episode was on Tuesday. We talked about, or I talked about.
So just to refresh our memory, that one is more, obviously, it's e-commerce.
Yes, the e-commerce edge just gives you the edge in e-commerce. It's a mix of just news and happenings for the week to keep you up to date and everything. E-commerce, Amazon, Shopify, everything like that. And then a mix of like insights and tactics and marketing strategies. And basically, the idea is that, you know, we deal with e-commerce day in and day out, and it's just kind of a mix of things we learn and pick up every single week, as well as things that are going on in the general space. So if you're in e-com, I would recommend give it
definitely.
a shot.
I actually listened to it yesterday, I mean, you and I talk all the time, but there's some interesting pointers out there as far as it's so hard to keep up with everything these days. As far as
it is, that's why it's funny, because we have our e-commerce newsletter as well, and the whole reason I made that newsletter was because I was looking for a easy source news. I like newsletters because it comes in my inbox. There's websites that you can get for news, but I like to just get a little quick summary. You know, I don't want to have to read individual articles, and it really didn't exist, especially for the Amazon side of things. I mean, there's some, but there wasn't anything that I was looking for. And I said, okay, well, why don't I make it? And I'm sure people will like it.
And again, because it's so easy to read or to listen to, you can, with the show notes and all that stuff, you can just jump ahead to the section that you are interested in. And then if there's something that you already know, there's no need to spend your time. I mean, we do this obviously as a service. It's not that we have sponsors or we pay for it ourselves. So we do it as a service to our clients, and we just want to make sure that it actually makes our life easier too, because we can discuss things with clients at the same level.
Because it helps me when, you know, a lot of times you have ideas. It's the same, I hear this a lot with people who write a lot, and they say a lot of times you have ideas, but you can't necessarily articulate them until you sit down and write. And the same thing with a podcast. For me, I have lots of ideas and I learn lots of things, but then I have to kind of articulate them into a podcast and explain it. And so it actually helps me be better at marketing just by doing the podcast.
Right. All right, so it's already live and available on all major podcast platforms.
Yep.
Apple
will put
Podcasts,
links.
Spotify. If you follow us on Instagram, you will find links over there directly to Spotify. And then obviously if you go to mgredge.com, which is our official podcast platform or website, you will find all links to all the shows, all the podcasts, which we have 3 now. MGR Edge, the MGR Unplugged, which is this one, and then obviously the new one. All the episodes will be listed there, so you subscribe, and if you give us a review, that will be fantastic.
Oh yeah, please leave a review, because you know we have a bunch of reviews in the other ones, but this new one doesn't have reviews yet, so that helps us out.
It definitely helps with the rankings a little bit. It's kind of silly how Apple works the review system, but that's the system they have. So, all right, guys. So now today we actually want to discuss something that is not related to marketing. It's more of a lifestyle podcast, which is part of the reason why we have this MGR Unplugged is to discuss any topic that we want a little more in depth. And in this case, David and I actually discussed quite a bit life quality and longevity and things like that, and healthy living, and we're both pretty healthy as far as diet, exercise, and so forth in different styles. I'm obviously he has a different methodology for his lifestyle and diet and everything. I have obviously a more of an old style version, but we're both concerned about that stuff, and we read books about it, and we comment about it, and we live it every day. So I just thought that it would be nice to have a podcast that we kind of share of ideas. And
well, we were talking a little bit before, and we cut it off, save it for the podcast. But I was telling you because I think longevity is a big topic these days. Everybody's very interested in it, and I was telling you, I said my biggest fear is basically dying, and then very shortly after they kind of the cure for aging, or at least massively increasing lifespans, is found. That's my biggest fear.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean,
I think we're close.
Where things are growing so much, or progressing so much in the field of medicine and studies and biology and everything else, that what used to be that it looks like an incurable disease or whatever you had, now we're finding more and more cures or solutions to things. I mean, there's lots of vaccinations and things that are now a thing of the past, and obviously at the same time new things are coming out. But when it comes to longevity or increasing your lifespan, or actually your health span, because we're talking about living longer with a good quality of living, not that you are a vegetable in a wheelchair or something. I mean, we're talking about people living longer, just with a healthy lifestyle. Is something that, like I said, I mean, you can Google that or look at articles or whatever, and it's pretty much everywhere these days. And there's a lot of articles and things that are just kind of just headlines that everybody likes to read, but there's a lot of stuff going on there. So we're going to try to digest a little bit of some ideas, and then obviously the second part of the podcast will be a little more on the consequences of increasing our lifespan if we were to live 20, 30, 40 years longer than the current lifespan, and what will be the consequences for our society, for everything in general. So this is a little bit of brainstorming. I mean, we talk about things, but we just share the thoughts. So, but the main thing first is that one of the pieces of data that I actually was I read in different sources, and it's pretty incredible, is the fact that the life expectancy increases by an average of 3 months with every passing year, meaning that if a person is born today, he has a certain life expectancy. Let's say that in the U.S. it's close to 79, 80 years old for a male.
So every 4 years, you're expected to live 1 year longer.
Exactly. So you have a brother or a sister that is born a year later. On average, that person, all things being equal, will live basically three more months than you. Or you have a sibling that is 4 years younger, then you can expect that person to maybe die a year earlier than you. And that's pretty incredible, just as it is. I mean, when you do look at the numbers, and this actually relates to most of the countries, civilized countries. Sweden is one of the ones that is the most advanced in this kind of study, but it really applies to...
But that more applies... It depends a lot on the context, where you're born, too.
Well, yeah, obviously, that's what I'm trying to...
If you're born in, the undeveloped world, it's way different.
That's why I said civilized or developed countries, where most of the... infant diseases and things like that are very eradicated, and now we're just talking about a normal lifestyle with you don't have a disease or a situation like that. So
I wish there were more. I mean, these studies are really hard to do because obviously it takes a long time to figure these things out. But I wish there were more studies because in the U.S., the average lifespan is. As far as most recently, I mean, maybe I'm sure the numbers are changing, but it's right about 79, 80. I think it's a little more for women versus men, but call it 80 is about average. But that's just all Americans. Mm-hmm. I wonder, okay, but obviously, we have quite the obesity epidemic in America, and we have even just like people with genetic diseases that are out of their control. I wonder what it is. What's the lifespan of someone who was lucky enough not to be born with some type of terrible genetic disease, and then is able to stay in shape, eat a healthy diet, live a good life, never is obese, all of those things. What's the average lifespan for that person? Because I bet you it's longer than 80. I don't know what the answer
Well, that's
to
a part of
that
the
is.
studies that they're doing. I mean, they do have some groups where they do some research, and we'll get into that a little more a little later in the podcast. But they do have groups that have a specific diet or life, style or something, and then they can tell, obviously, whether their biological age, which is one thing that can be measured,
Right.
Versus your physical age or your chronological age.
Do you know how they measure that? Isn't that...
Yeah, it's a blood test, basically.
I've heard it was telomere lengths.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
things like
well,
that.
that's part of it. That's more technical, but basically starts with a blood test, which is specific. I mean, a blood test is very generic, but they look for specific DNA traits and genome traits and stuff, and then they can tell what is your biological age. Not only that, they can actually tell what your life expectancy will be based on your biological age, which that's a comparison level.
Do we know if it's accurate, though?
It is.
Because it's pretty recent that they've done this. So
Yes,
how do they know?
Well,
If you're 50 when you do it, and they say, okay, you'll live to 85, well, we don't know if they're accurate for another 35 years.
They don't tell you. It's not like you turn 85, you die. It's
No,
just
I
basically
know,
they
but-
say, it's like say, okay, based on your biological age and what we're seeing now, you should be. It's no different than when you are diagnosed with a disease and they say, okay, you have 6 months left in your life or something.
Right,
Okay,
but in that case...
it could be 7, it could be 5, but they can already tell how fast it's progressing and what time you have left.
But in that case, you know whether you're right much quicker.
Yes.
In this case, if someone tells you when you're 50, okay, you're going to live to 80,
Well, but that's as
you
of
don't
now.
you don't know for 30 years.
Well, it's a prediction. It's basically saying based on your current. Let's say that I'm 55, and they say your biological age is really, let's just say, optimistic, 48. I say, oh, fantastic! I'm younger in my cells than I am, chronologically. And they say based on this, you're gonna die at 90. Okay, that's as of today. If everything continues the same, the projection is that I will die at 90. Now, if I change my lifestyle completely, one way or the other, if I start drinking, smoking, doing this and that, I say, okay, forget the 90. You're going to die in 20 years.
right. I'm just asking, how do they know that they're right?
Well,
how do they know they're accurate? Because we don't know for a long time.
Well, I mean, I don't know how accurate it is, but they can predict. It's fairly new, so obviously it's not like they say, "Oh, we told you we're going to do this," and then
Right,
it's
that's
just,
what I'm saying.
No, but it's almost like, I mean, this is a very, very basic analogy, but it's like you're going from Phoenix to San Diego, and they halfway through a trip, they say, "Oh, okay, how much are you? How far are you? Oh, I'm 200 miles in. And how much have you driven? Oh, I've driven already like 3-4
Yeah, okay.
hours." They say, "Okay, well, you can estimate to get there in another 3 hours."
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, I get
based
what
on
you're
what you have,
Okay.
That's what they're estimating. They're not telling you that it's accurate because obviously you have a deadline. You're like, oh fuck, I have 3 years to live.
No, obviously.
I mean, they're telling you you're in good shape, and the doctor tells you that. Okay, keep doing what you're doing. You're gonna, you're doing a healthy lifestyle. Of course, tomorrow you get run over by a bus and you die, but that's different. Your biological age is young, and you're doing what you can to live young.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So it's not something super accurate. But anyways, there's ways to dictate that, and then if you are interested, we'll add some show notes at the end of the show with some information. But yeah, you can get your biological age.
One of the things you read, I haven't read the book yet. I will, but David Sinclair's new book. That's one of the inspirations for this podcast.
Yeah, I follow him for a while. I mean, his book is he's actually doing different tours. Some people may already know is I think the title is Why We Age or on Why We Don't Have to or something like that.
Yeah.
I've followed him for a while. He's a Harvard professor and he's been studying this forever. And I will mention some of his.
Does he think that within the next, my question is, someone who's born now, right, like 2019, what's their life expectancy?
Well, I don't know those numbers. I mean, I can't. I mean, right now, as of today,
is it in the do they expect them to easily live to 100?
Well, the prediction is by the end of the century, people nothing changing, just by the progression that we described before, about 3 months for every year. by the end of the century, by 2080 or so, life expectancy could easily be 100. That's overall. But when you do certain things with your life,
By the year 2100?
2080.
That seems far. I think it could be sooner than that.
Well, like I said, this is normal life expectancy without any progression in medicine or anything. Just considering the 3 months per year, that's what you can expect to be. But that doesn't include any of the things that are being discovered right now, like genetic engineering and hacking cells and things like that.
Right, like people die for a lot of reasons. But as far as age-related death, besides accidents, things like that, most people don't actually die from old age. They die from heart disease, cancer.
Well, that's one of the
like
things. That's one of the things that is preventing more progress, if you will, on aging research. Aging is not considered a disease.
They're trying to change that.
They're trying to change that.
I know the FDA is
the
reviewing
World
it.
Health Organization is trying to. There's been different proposals to change and consider aging a disease, and basically there's connotations of that. But a lot of the diseases that people die of, like whether it be Alzheimer's or heart disease or cancer, obviously, a lot of those things increase exponentially when you turn 50 and after.
Right.
Which is not a consequence of being 50, is the consequence of aging. So,
right, I think aging is a disease because what is aging really? It's our term for the degradation of your body.
Exactly.
It's a natural function, but it really is. It's like a disease that you're born with. That your body decays over time, and I think it's something that we could slow or reverse potentially.
Well, that is the goal exactly. That what you said is exactly the goal. The goal is to slow the disease, just as you try to buy more time. With any other disease that you have, whether you have Alzheimer's, you go to a doctor, this and that. And I mean, there's tons of diseases out there that all you're trying to do is slow down the progression so you can have more lifespan. Aging is the same thing, except that we're born with it. Everybody's born with this disease, which is hard to accept, and that's why part of the reason why it's not a disease. There's some, they say that a disease is considered a disease when it affects more than 50% of the population. Like 51% of the population is affected by this, and then
Really?
Yeah, there's some.
What about like extremely rare diseases? That's still a disease.
No, like I said, if you are 51%, if more than 51% of the population is affected by something, it's not considered a disease.
I thought you meant the reverse. Sorry. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. So when something is more than 51%, in the case of aging, it affects 100%. Then it's a natural consequence.
I mean,
whether it is 49.9, then it's considered a disease, and then pharmaceutical companies and everything can get into that classification, and that's basically the classification from the World Health Organization.
I mean, I think it's close to 40% for cancer. I mean, it's almost basically half the population for cancer. Would they, if it were to go over 50, they say cancer's not a disease? That doesn't make sense.
Yes, well, I mean, that's another discussion because
especially
a lot of people,
if you live long enough.
There's a lot of people that die with cancer and a lot of people that die of cancer.
Right.
So there's a difference.
If you live long enough, if you live to 120, the odds of you getting cancer are significant.
Well,
and I would bet
there's a lot of people that are pretty healthy that they have some cancerous cells in their body.
Right. I mean, cancer that requires treatment. That's what I mean.
Right.
Everybody has cancer cells, but in most cases, your immune system just kills them off. You're fine. I meant cancer to the point where you develop tumors or a case where you need to be treated. That's what I mean.
Right.
But I mean, I think men. Isn't it something like half of men and 1 in 3 women? Something crazy like that?
I don't have that data. I
It's
don't know.
a massive amount of people get cancer.
Now,
not all of it is.
But getting back to
deadly.
the topic about aging being a disease or not is incredible how like one of the things that it always kind of catches my attention when I see is, or when I read it, is that they say, okay, well, if you smoke, you have 10 more chances or possibility of getting cancer, lung cancer or something, or you do this, you have more chances of this, or the cholesterol, this and that. I then realize that with aging, when you get 50 plus, then your chances are like 100% more, just because of aging. Whereas if they consider aging a disease and you start treating that as a disease from the beginning, from early age, then you start preventing it. And then you prevent a lot of these diseases that will happen as a consequence of aging.
And a lot of those things, like if you drink a lot, if you're a heavy drinker, heavy smoker, you're going to age faster.
Well,
right?
yeah, because you're
We've all seen people who have been healthy their whole lives and people who have been smoking a pack a day, and by the time they're 50, they look like they're 80. You know, I mean, it definitely, there's things that will increase aging a lot faster too. And I think aging is a disease. And I think that, but the problem is that it's a very broad range because aging affects everything in your body. So I don't know that there's like one treatment that would reverse it.
It's not one treatment, but there's a combination of treatments and things that you can do with your life to
The biggest is diet.
to
first of all.
basically increase your lifespan. And there's animals that reproduce themselves. There's animals that live 100 years, 150 years, 250 years. Yeah,
Animals?
whales.
I mean, I know like turtles live a long time, but
Yeah, and whales live a long time. Sharks live a long time. There's jellyfish that reproduce themselves and they live forever. I mean,
don't lobsters live a long time?
I don't know about lobsters. Except that people eat them all the time. But
I thought lobsters live a long time. Basically, almost all lobsters die of getting killed, not die of.
But there's been a lot of
age.
testing done with a few, with a lot of different experiments, as you were saying, like one thing or another at the cell level, at biological level, with mice, for example. And you know, we share about 95% of our DNA with mice, and that's what makes it a little more accurate.
Which is actually, it's a lot, but it's not that much either.
Well, yeah,
Because we share 90% with a lot of things.
yes, of course. But anyways, you were talking about things that we can do to make ourselves be healthier, or basically at the cellular level, not so much. I'm not talking anti-aging like any cosmetic stuff. Like, there's people that are very healthy, but they still have wrinkles, and they look later at their age and all that stuff. And this is not what this conversation is about. We're not talking about getting Botox or getting any facial lifts or anything. I mean, externally you can look however you want, or whatever is externally affecting you.
But if you do anti-aging non-cosmetic, you'll still look better.
Yeah, you look better. You basically, but it's more internally. It's more your mind. Your mind feels your thinking, your attitude, your lifestyle is more of a person that is younger. Like you hear the 50s and you're 40 and blah, 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 and all that stuff. But it's really about a mindset. It's not so much, you can be all day in the sun and enjoying lifestyle and a healthy lifestyle and being in the sun and running or doing this or that and get a lot of wrinkles and whatever, I mean, that's cosmetically or even lose your hair or whatever. But what I'm talking about is more how your mindset works when you age and you get older, but you still feel with the energy and the lifestyle that you had basically 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and you don't feel like you're slowing down a whole lot. And, that's because you still have the energy to do that. So, and I know you practice a few of these things, and I have too, but, one of the things that is, I don't want to mention the word diet, but it's been proven that calorie restriction is one of the things that increases our lifespan or contributes to improving your anti-aging at the cellular level.
Yeah.
And I know you know more about that stuff because you've been
There's actually
researching.
been studies that show not just you, but I know there was a massive study in mice, and there was also studies on people. There needs to be more studies on people, but basically there's kind of two parts of your genetics. One is the evolution, which takes millions of years, so nothing you're going to do is really going to affect evolution. But there is, I think they call it genetic memory or something like that, and it's basically people who lived their lives with caloric restriction actually passed down traits that gave their offspring better metabolisms. And this is in one generation. And it was definitely shown in mice that mice who had caloric restriction, their offspring had better metabolisms. And that's pretty crazy. So not only are you being healthier yourself, your children will be healthier.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's kind of crazy to think about. Because when you think of genetics, you think of something it's out of your control. But in some cases, and for the most part it is, but in some cases, there is some genetic memory that is implanted in you. And I don't know exactly how that works. And I know that they're trying to do more studies on this. Obviously, these studies take a long time to do too. But yeah, I mean, diet is a big deal. I mean, if you eat poorly, you're not going to be healthy.
But it's not so much about the quality of the food you eat, which obviously is important, but it's
both.
also the quantity, and the calorie restriction diet is basically is based on being hungry. Most of the time, I mean, you restrict the amount of calories you eat before you feel full.
Right, you want to feel hunger pains.
You put your body into a survival mode, which means that your own cells are trying to survive and they start addressing the bad cells. And another extreme case of this is the famous fasting or intermittent fasting, which some people do. I mean, some people do intermittent fasting, which could be 18-6 or something like that.
It depends. The most common is probably 16-8. So you eat 8 hours a day and fast 16. You can go more. There's more benefits to doing more.
Right.
Most people do the 16 because that's like I've done 16-8, and typically I can go 14, 15 hours before I start feeling hungry, and then normally the last hour or two I start getting like, okay, I could really eat now. And then you just kind of, it's about just willpower really to control it.
There's different, some people even do a more radical one, like it's every quarter, like they go a whole week of fasting every quarter.
Yeah, I've never done that.
Yeah.
Some people do, like some people will do 24-hour fasts like 2 days a week. So they just don't eat 2 days a week, but the other days they don't fast. There's different methods. From what I've seen, like 18-6, 16-8, things like that work pretty well. Because I think after 16 hours your body starts doing or going through the process of autophagy, which is what you were saying, which is basically kind of the cleaning of your cells. I don't know the exact science behind it, but it's basically killing off older cells. There's some signs that show autophagy and fasting can actually help people with cancer.
It can get, I mean, we can get more technical, but I don't want to make this like losing the audience if we haven't lost it by then. But the
details
has
are
to do.
important.
It has to do with the fact that your enzymes, and we're talking sirtuins and more complicated terms, go into you can call it survival mode. That's why sometimes you see accidents and movies with this guy that was in a wreck, it's a kind of ship or something, and survive like 15 days with no water and this and that. I mean, you survive. I mean, your body goes into survival mode.
You can go a long time without food.
Yeah, you can
water normally about a week.
Right.
But food,
Exactly.
You can go a month without food.
Yeah, and it goes back to our ancestors that were hunters, and they were just basically, before they became gatherers, and they were used to just hunting, and sometimes they would not hunt anything, and they had 3, 4, 5 days with no food, So, but it has to do with your body function system, or for lack of a more technical word, and sirtuins and enzymes and all that stuff that go into a survival mode, and you basically tell those enzymes to work on adding nutrition to themselves in a way that they have to, even by killing the bad cells, like you said, the autophagy, without without having the extra food that basically puts them to sleep, because you say, okay, well, I have enough nutrients and everything. I don't have to worry about killing bad cells. I have enough work to do now. I'm being distracted, so to speak, at the biological level, so I don't have to get into this survival mode anymore. So, but yeah, intermittent fasting and which is a form of calorie restriction, is one of the ways that you can definitely make your body healthier.
But I think if you're choosing between caloric restriction and like, okay, I'm not going to do a certain hours. Basically, most people, if you do intermittent fasting, it's actually not that hard, because, you go to bed, you stop eating at 8 o'clock at night, and then you skip breakfast and eat at noon. But that's not that hard. That's why it works for me. I mean, to me, that's definitely the easiest way to do it, because then that's basically 16 hours, 8 p.m. to 12 noon the next day. If you do caloric restriction, it's better than nothing, but you don't get the autophagy if you're not doing fasting. Normally, it's after about 16 to 18 hours of not eating that you go through autophagy. So even if you're, like, if two people both eat, let's just say the average diet is 2,000 calories. So both people say, okay, I'm going to only eat 1,800 calories a day. So a 200 calorie deficit. the person who does fasting and then eats 1,800 calories versus the person who doesn't do fasting and basically just spreads it out more throughout the day is going to have less benefits, the person who doesn't do the fasting, from what I've seen. I'm not a doctor, but I've researched it a lot myself, and that seems to be the case. Both are good. It's better than overeating, obviously, but you get more benefits from the fasting.
Right. I mean, the main point is that when you have this lethargic or silenced genes in that state all the time, which is when you're overeating for that matter, then you're not inducing your body to regenerate itself. Whereas when you have those genes starving a little bit, and we're talking about enzymes and things up, then you turn them on. So they start doing a lot of house cleaning, which is cleaning your body for that matter. And then they become more active, and then they do the cleaning for you. So that's the whole purpose of the calorie restriction or intermittent fasting or anything like that. So you get those enzymes and the protein stuff just kind of working harder on your body. There's obviously, everybody knows that exercise is critical, but it's not so much like there's this conception of having to exercise to lose weight. And I think that's not really the reason to exercise.
I think if you're trying to, especially if you're starting to lose weight, it's actually better to not start exercising and just focus on diet first, because it's known that you can't outrun your diet. That's like the famous saying, because you could go run 3 miles and burn a few hundred calories, but if you eat one bad food, you're going to eat way more than you just burned. And especially, I mean, if you're very overweight, you can lose a lot of weight just by restricting calories without even going on a diet.
Exactly. Exercise is more a matter of keeping your metabolism active. And people think that exercise, you have this image of going to a gym and working your butt off and doing chin-ups and push-ups and this and that. A lot of times it's not even that. A lot of times it's just a basic 2-3 hours a week. Like maybe you just go for a walk, a brisk walk, or do something, or maybe a little jog or something, like 20 minutes every other day.
Not even 3 hours a week. I mean, it depends what you do. I like HIIT, the high intensity interval training, because it doesn't take a lot of time. I mean, you go hard for 20-30 minutes and you are toasted. Now, it's intensity, so
you need
it's
to
intense.
get your cardiovascular rate or your metabolic rate at a certain level.
Right. When you do HIIT, I mean, I'll get to 200 beats per minute. I mean, you go hard. And it's 20-30 minutes of all out, but then you're done, and that's it. And you can do it 2-3 times a week, and you'll be in way better shape than someone who exercises every day but kind of half-asses it.
Well, that's why the sprints and everything else, as far as running, work better than running for like 20 minutes.
I used to do that too. I mean, I used to go to the gym every single day for like an hour a day, but I didn't really know what I was doing, and I wouldn't push myself, and I wouldn't go hard, and I'd be there for an hour, and I'd break a little sweat, I'd be a little tired, but basically I was not doing it right, and I think a lot of people don't do it right, and now I spend less than half the time exercising per week that I used to, but I work way harder and I see better results than I did back then.
And another key is more consistency. I mean, some people like, oh my God, I go to a gym or doing this, or I had a pickup game with my friends and they kill themselves for 3 hours and then they don't work out again for another week.
Yeah.
That's not the way it works. I mean, exercise, just like the diet or nutrition, is a lifestyle choice, and then you need to be active. And I'm not here to tell people what to do or not to do, but when it comes to longevity, that is the topic of this podcast, it is obviously way proven, and we don't have to even say anything about it, that when you have an active lifestyle and you have more oxygen going to your blood, and your blood is circulating through your system and is cleansing and is just basically revitalizing your whole body and your whole biological makeup, that's where it's going to make you live longer. I mean, and it's proven. People that exercise and even after retirement, one of the things that happens when people retire officially, like 65, and just kind of what happens is that they start aging twice as fast. And we've all seen it with family, friends, ancestors, whatever, that they retire and all of a sudden they just get older much faster because they become sedentary. They stop the activity that they were doing before, and then they just basically start consuming themselves and die.
This is why I think retirement is a scam.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different conversation. I agree. I mean, retirement is.
I think the reason retirement, everybody likes the idea. I mean, first of all, there's two types of work, right? Everybody has done work that they like. That doesn't mean you got paid for it. Everybody has hobbies, right? And most hobbies involve some form of work, whether your hobby is gardening or some type of sport or whatever. That's work, okay? But you enjoy it. And I think that retirement should be, instead of saying, I'm going to work this job I hate for 50 years or whatever, 40 years, and then never work again, I think the better approach would be, I'm going to work. And you don't even have to work a job you hate, but if you want to make more money, you can say, okay, I'm going to work this job that I don't like that much. And my retirement, I can retire earlier at 50 instead of 65. And at 50, I'm going to, instead of working this job that I don't like, I'm going to take the pay cut and do something that I do like and say, okay, maybe I'll make, let's say you're making $80,000 a year, and now I'm going to work for $40,000 a year at this other job, but I love doing this job, and it's not even like work for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's a different.
I think that's the better approach.
Retirement and all that is something that started back in the what was it, post World War II or something? And
I mean, I get it. Obviously, you don't want to keep doing the
I
thing
mean, if
you
you're
hate.
a person that has a very physical job and your body is
Right.
totally beat down and stuff, then yeah, you look forward to kind of retiring for that job. That doesn't mean that mentally you retire. You may be to becoming a book writer or becoming a study
What
or
I
do
mean
something.
is, if you're working if you're a construction worker for 30 years,
right,
then your retirement is getting a desk job, basically. And I'm not saying you have to work full time. Like, if you just work part time at something you enjoy and it's not physically intensive, first of all, most people do work desk jobs these days. Now, that's the case where if you're a manual laborer, of course, you can't be 70 still in the coal mine. I mean, that's just not possible. But for the average desk worker, you can just do things that you enjoy, and maybe you make less, but that's why you save up. But instead of retiring and not working at all and saying, I'm done, have a job that you enjoy. That's what.
Yeah, it's just the image that we have in society of I'm retired and then I'm gonna play with my grandchildren and sit down by the fireplace, and you have this image of the old couple in some kind of chair by the beach overlooking the ocean. Okay, yeah, that's very nice, but it gets bored after 2 days. Sitting by the beach looking at the ocean is like, okay, now what?
The truth is, most retired people are bored out of their minds.
They
Why
are.
do you think you have these
retirement communities and all that stuff?
With shuffleboard and bingo?
Yeah,
because they're bored.
And again, I mean, we're retiring and add to that to longevity. That's why we're going to get into the second part of the podcast about the consequences of living longer. But I mean, you retire at 62, 65, 67, and you still have 20 years to live or 25 years to live, and all of a sudden you don't have that kind of human interaction. We're social animals, okay? We like to interact with people, and all of a sudden you find yourself
like challenges.
Yeah, and we like the life purpose. So you find yourself retired, and you're missing the work discussions, those things that were pissing you off every day. All of a sudden you're missing the interaction with clients, with other people, whatever. Yeah, I think it's fine for the first maybe even a year, but then it's like, okay, then your mind starts atrophying. I mean, it's just like you lose your goals, and then you start becoming like a little bit of a grumpy person, and then all that attitude changes. I'm more into, I mean, I don't really look forward to retirement. I'll retire when I die, whatever that is. But the thing is, I'd rather have more like mini retirement vacations, you will, throughout my life, rather than lump sum 20 years at the end. You know, like I'd rather just say, okay, well, I'm going to take a week off whatever time of the year I want to. You know, and then I'm going to travel this, I'm going to do that. Of course, I have the freedom to do that because of my situation, my job, whatever. But at the same time, it's like, no, I'm not going to work my ass off until I'm 65 and then say, okay, now I'm off for 25 years to do whatever I want. Because first of all, at 65, I cannot do things that I can do at 45 or 50 or 55. And secondly, I don't want to wait until the end because I don't know what's going to happen at the end. So I'd rather have mini retirements or mini vacations throughout my life and all the way until the end.
I think the better approach, instead of saying I'm going to work and then never work again, I think that's kind of crazy. I think the better approach is, okay, I'm doing this job because it pays well, and it's fine. I think most people get some enjoyment out of their job. I mean, a lot of people don't like their job, but it's not like you hate every second. Everybody has parts of their job. I don't care if you're doing your dream job. You still have parts of your job that you don't like doing. That's life.
Yeah, well, you hate your job. What are you doing about it?
Well, my point is, I get it. If you say, listen, this job pays me super well, I don't necessarily like it, but I'm just focused on saving up right now, that's totally fine. But save up and then say, but what I really want to do is be a novelist or whatever. Even that's, it's hard to make money as a novelist, but even some job that a marine biologist or something that you think is going to be hard to make a great living on, that's fine. Just work this job that you don't like, that you make a lot of money for a short period of time, and then save up your money and say, now I can do this job that I love and not have to worry about maximizing my income. That's really, why do people work jobs they don't like? It's only for money. There's a reason why companies that aren't great to work at offer big salaries, because no one would work there if they didn't offer above market salaries.
So let's, since we're talking about this now, about retirement and all that stuff, let's just think about, okay, we discussed longevity briefly. I mean, there's ways to research and everything to recap quickly about increasing our lifespan or our healthy or a health span as far as how much longer we can live healthy with basically with biological hacking of our DNA and cells and everything else. And again, it could be very technical, but there's ways to increase longevity. If you start treating aging as a disease, you can cure aging or at least delay it. But let's get a little bit into, let's say that we fast forward and then we are in a society where our lifespan is already 100, 120 years instead of 80. Okay, so we're now in whatever year it is in the future, and we are all living 120 years normal. I mean, it was at the beginning of the century, we were living like 35, 40 years. Okay.
Not really.
Yeah.
That's if you include child mortality. It's not like people were dying at 40.
That's the average. We were living 45, 50 years. The lifespan was in that range. And of course, there was a lot of diseases and child mortality that increased or decreased the average.
But most people lived into their 70s if they didn't die as a child, basically.
Right. Okay, well, you can go back to last century or whatever you want to go back to. Our lifespan obviously has increased. So let's just fast forward and think that we're now averaging 120 years, okay? And there's people that have lived already, 115, 117, 122, I think is the record. Kind of pseudo-official. They don't know if there was this French lady that apparently lived that long, and then there's kind of a little bit of a conspiracy or controversial thing thinking that the daughter actually took the identity or something, I don't know. But anyways, there's people documented that have lived way into their hundreds. And let's say that society overall, the new longevity or lifespan for people is about 120 years. So that changes a lot of things as far as how we live. So for one, we know the birth rate now is at the lowest it's ever been in civilized countries. I think in the U.S. we're still 2.1 or something.
2.2, I think.
2.1, 2.2. Yeah, for every couple, we have basically 2.1, 2.2 new babies, basically, meaning that we survive the species.
Population is still growing, not as fast as it used to be, but it's still
in
growing.
other countries, Northern European countries, or even most European countries, I'll say.
A lot of countries.
They're like a 1.8, 1.9, 1.7.
Oh, there's some that are like 1.5.
Right.
They're in trouble.
Meaning that if a couple has one kid and the other couple has two, basically it's 1.5 average, meaning
you can expect the population to drop by 20% over the next
to age, but
over the next probably 30 years.
Right. Okay. You have an aging population, which you add the anti-aging thing that now we're living, again, we're in the future living 120 years. What happens is the world just getting old because we don't have enough births, but we have a lot of older people.
Yeah, but if you have that lifespan, I'm going to assume that people have a better health span too.
They
right?
do.
Well, then people can work longer. And
well, yeah, they can work longer, but that doesn't make them any younger. They're still basically a person that is 95 years old.
Right, but if you're 95 functioning as if someone today functions at 65, that's a big difference.
It is. No, I'm not talking about the quality lifestyle. I'm talking about the population aging. You are only adding 1.5 on one end, but everybody's living longer.
Oh, yeah. No, we are definitely, I mean, there's certain countries that are going to have a demographic crisis. I mean, Japan is already going through this right now. Japan has a ton of older people, and their birth rate is super low. That's why their economy has been stagnant for 30 years. And I think Europe's going to go through the same thing. The only countries that are really growing fast still are India and Africa. Even China has because by government imposed rules, they got rid of that now, right?
They eliminated, yeah,
but
they limited
basically, the birth rate in China for a long time was really low. I mean, by law, it was
only one family per one.
By law, it was one. In actuality, because people cheated, it was still low. It was like 1.3. I mean, that is like really low, lowest in the world.
Right. So if one of the consequences is that we'll have an aging population as far as people walking around, and you see.
But it's only a problem if people retire. I think retirement is going to go away in the sense that we know it now, like we said, where you're just going to stop working.
But I'm more thinking that...
Because if you're 70 and you retire, you're going to live another 50 years? That's not going to work.
Well, retirement obviously is another is obviously the retirement age will delay. But on this level, as far as having less births than we have aging people or dying people for that matter, obviously you have more, the average age of the population would be older. However, you can think also that now there's techniques that especially women are deciding to use techniques to delay having babies. So they freeze their eggs and they do over all the things and IVF and all that stuff. And, just because they are in the pinnacle of their careers and it's not convenient for them, to interrupt with becoming a mother, but at the same time, if you know or you think that you're going to live to 100 years, what makes you not decide to have a baby when you're 50?
I don't know. I don't know the expert on the on women's biology. I don't know how old you can be and still have a baby, even if you're using your eggs from when you were 30.
Fertility, exactly.
I don't know the science behind that. I know you can be like in your 40s. I don't know if you're like 60, if it still works. I have no idea. But
right. But the other thing is obviously, like you mentioned, retirement age is obviously, for one, if you're relying on Social Security, good luck getting any money because the government will not have any money for you to pay for you for 60 years or 50 years after you stop contributing, so to speak. So obviously, all the governments are right now delaying Social Security ages or retirement age little by little, 62 to 65, 67 and a half, 69, and eventually, it'll be adjusted accordingly. So there's enough people contributing.
It's not enough.
Well, yeah, I know. Okay, I don't want to get into a political discussion whether Social Security would be bankrupt or whatever, but obviously that will increase retirement accounts. I mean, people will have to start saving with much more.
I mentioned to you, I said, I want to see, because right now, like the famous thing is, if you start investing when you're 20, and then by the time you're 65, because of compound interest, you have all this money. I said, yeah, well, I want to see how much money. Imagine if you invest when you're 20, and then how much money you have by the time you're 100 with compound interest.
That is, you are on the good side, but you're on the bad side.
Filthy rich.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the famous joke about what's your retirement saving strategy. It's like, my strategy has always been the same, just die early. Okay, well, yeah, that's good. You don't have to worry about retirement money. But if you are trying to save for retirement and they have all these calculators thinking, okay, you're going to work until you're 67 and you're going to work until this and
that's
that.
why I said I think retirement, as we know it today, will go away. I think it will have a different perspective on retirement because I think retirement is actually not that good of a thing. I don't think you want just a massive... By the way, people in their 60s and 70s are very valuable to the workforce.
Of course they are.
They have a ton of experience and wisdom, okay? I don't think we should just be saying, oh, no, you're done. They could add a ton to the workforce.
Oh, yeah. It's not physical or chronological age. It has nothing to do with the ability for a person to perform better or worse. I mean, you can have a person that is...
I mean, Warren Buffett is
super bright.
Isn't he 90?
Yeah, and even Charlie Munger is even older.
Yeah.
So, but you can have people that are older chronologically, but much younger biologically, as far as their thinking and brightness, experience,
right? And not just that. Just I mean, listen. When you're 80 and you started working when you're 20, you have 60 years of experience. There's not that many people with 60 years of experience. That's very valuable. And I just think that the idea that you're going to be, first of all, if people are living to 120, the retirement age is not going to be 70, okay? Because you're not going to not work for 50 years. I just think that I don't think retirement is a good thing in the sense that, I'm never going to work again. Because one, I mean, you're killing the productivity of the country. The country GDP-wise could be growing faster if more people worked. And then two, that's on the economic side. But then two, I just think people are generally happier and more fulfilled when they have something to work for.
It's a purpose.
Now, you
right.
don't have to work a job that you hate when you're older because you've saved up enough money that you can just work on what you want to work on.
It could be a job, like a hobby type thing that doesn't even produce you any income, but it gets you busy and challenged and distracted all the time.
Right.
So it depends on your
if you want to be a writer,
situation.
It's hard to make money, but at least you love it.
Yeah,
and if
you
you
love
make
it.
money, great.
You
If
have
you
the
don't, you
discipline,
don't.
and you get up whenever, and you're right to it at night, in the mornings, whatever you do, it's just keeping your mind busy, because the last thing you want to do is retire and get your mindset of a retired person. But another thing that I was thinking of is obviously marriages. Right now, no, I mean, it's true. I mean, divorce rates are very, very high in pretty much every civilized country. In the U.S., obviously, we have a high divorce rates or separations and things like that. But obviously, the famous "till death do us apart." Yeah, that worked very well when death was 10 years after your marriage. You have kids, they work on a farm, and then you die, and they continue.
10 years? When was that?
That was a long time ago, but it was the way it was. I mean, families were reproduced, and then...
I mean, you get married... First of all, they used to have kids younger. They used to have kids in their teens back then. But they lived to their... Still, they lived to their 60s.
No, I'm talking back in the 1800s. People would just die at 40, 45, 50.
No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, maybe some, but... People still... I mean, Benjamin Franklin died at like 75.
Okay, well, you can... Yeah, okay, there's always exceptions, but keep in mind that medicine was not developed back then. And when you had a pretty semi-serious disease, chances are you were incapacitated or died. Even a high fever could kill you. So, but anyways, the point is that most of the times, marriages were dissolved due to death. There was no divorces because... they'll be married for 10, 15, 20 years, and then basically one of the spouses dies or whatever. Right now, there's many marriages that, when people reach 55, 60 years old, they've been married for 25, 30 years. And there's the divorce rates is higher. There's many more options on social life and everything else.
Do you know, I don't know if you know, what's the difference? Because a lot of people, I think the majority of divorces are probably within the first 5 to 10
I didn't
years.
look it up for this particular podcast, but I do know that
a lot of people get married
there's a high percentage within the first 2 years, and there's another, and then within the first 7 years, I think by then 50%. I'm still kind of guessing, but the majority of
because a lot of people date for 6 months and get married and then realize, I don't like this.
Right, and we see that happen all the time.
How many people get divorced after they've been together like 30 years? It's probably pretty low.
Yeah, after you pass a certain threshold, like 25 or something, then the divorce rate lowers quite a bit. At that point, people are more settled. But still, sticking to the longevity part, people will normally have the divorce rate will be maybe even the same, but then you have multiple partners. Which makes me think, okay, well, that means that if you had 2 kids with the first marriage, and then you maybe have another kid or something with the second marriage.
Depends how old you are. I mean, if you're in your 60s when you get remarried, you're not having more kids.
Yeah, it depends on you're 60 or you are 50 or 40 or whatever. But the bottom line is that you will probably see more a more common place where people are just basically married, divorced, remarried, multiple partners in their lives, even if it's not marriage, even if it's just having different partners, which will have its own implications, including the fact that families will not be father or parents and children and maybe grandchildren. Majority of families will even have like great-grandchildren. Like you're living to 120 years old, chances are you will be meeting your grandchildren and having a Thanksgiving dinner that could be huge with everybody there. So, I mean, that it's interesting because we think about these things, but then when you start thinking about the consequences, and not to mention, I mean, will there be enough food in the world if we have so many people? If everybody's living, obviously, we say, there's enough food. But really, I mean, if all of a sudden you have like, if you count right now how many people die, let's say in the U.S. at age 75 or later, and you say, okay, let's assume that all these people are actually still alive for another 20 years, and then the people that turn 75 and the people that turn 76 and so forth, you add a lot of population to the country and add that to the world.
I think we're less than 20 years away from solving hunger.
Okay.
I think that I think that agriculture tech, is a very, very fast-growing industry. It is receiving a ton of investment. I just think that people dying of starvation will no longer be a real problem within the next 20 years. Obviously, it's not in the modern world. The only place it happens still is in underdeveloped countries. But I think that within the next 20 years, we will have technological solutions to feed everybody on Earth, no problem.
What about
cheaper?
What about overpopulation? Overall?
I think that's not going to be a problem because I think population is going to shrink, not grow.
Oh, really? I mean, if right now we are about 300 million people in the U.S.
Yeah, and we have a ton of space. The U.S. is mostly
I understand
empty.
the space, but everybody likes to live in the same places. I mean, right now we have a lot of immigration in the country. And those are people that are not aging. Imagine if the number of additional population due to the longevity part increases by, let's say that 1/3 of the population is 55, 60 or older. Well, that means that you potentially could have another 100 million people living in the same country, in the U.S.
Yeah.
Where do you put those 100 million people?
Where?
Yeah, I mean...
Anywhere.
Yeah, of course, anywhere, but nobody wants to live in certain places. Everyone wants to live in the major cities, basically like we're doing now. So if every city adds another 20% of population, I mean, it's just basically overpopulation. I mean, you start having a lot of growth.
I mean, you build more. I mean, that's what
I
cities
understand.
do.
You build more houses.
The U.S. population in World War II was like I don't want to give a wrong number, but it was like 100-something million. I mean, we're more than double the population since then.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the U.S. in the Civil War, which is about 150 years ago, was, I think, 70 million, and now we're 320. So, I mean, and we don't have a problem with overpopulation in the U.S.
No, I understand. I'm not saying that it's going to be...
If you tell me the population goes from 320 to 400, so we have an extra 80 million people, no problem.
No problem?
Yeah, no problem. Because you act like it's going to happen overnight. Yeah, okay, if you just dumped 80 million people in the U.S. right now, okay, yeah, we'd have to figure it out. But it's not like you just add it overnight. It's going to happen over 30, 40 years. You have plenty of time.
Yeah, obviously, it's not like...
Because it grows organically.
But that's one of the things that it may happen faster than we think, because if there is some kind of medical discovery that all of a sudden says, okay, well, people either start doing this or eradicate this disease or this or that. I mean, the reason why the average lifespan increased is not so much because people are living longer, it's because you eliminated people that were dying early, including infant deaths. So when you do that is when you start seeing the increase in the lifespan, because it's how the averages worked. So if there's a medical discovery that eradicates something or allows people to, by modifying their DNA, epigenomic.
Yeah, but guess what? If people all of a sudden are going to live much longer, guess what older people can't get right now? Loans. When you're older, they don't give you a mortgage. They don't give you loans. I mean, because they're not going to give you a 30-year mortgage. You're going to die before you can pay it off. But guess what? If all of a sudden your lifespan increases by 40 years, you have much more earnings potential, and now you can get loans and you can finance these things.
Okay, well, let me ask you.
There's going to be a demand. Basically.
What about employment?
What do you mean?
I mean, if you have so many more people that are still working, will there be a lot of unemployment, or will the employment still be the same?
No.
Will everybody be employed, basically?
Not everybody. Not everybody's ever employed, but I don't think.
Well, I'm just talking.
I don't think. Are you asking? Will it be 20% unemployment? Absolutely not.
Well, I mean, in a different discussion, we talk about the artificial intelligence and things like that. Replacing some of the workplace and all that, and some of the robots, so to speak, replacing employment. And if you add to that the fact that okay, I understand it's a different discussion, but if you add to that the fact that people are going to be able to stay at the workplace 15, 20 years longer.
Right. So if you
have to have enough jobs for that.
If you add 80 million people to the population, then that means that those 80 million people are just like the current 320 million. They have demand too. They want goods, they want services, they want homes, they want everything. So just like because there will be 80 million new people that have a demand for all the goods and services that the other 320 million people have, there will be plenty of businesses and entrepreneurs that will gladly supply that demand. Supply and demand. That's how it works. And I think, yeah, you can add more people, and guess what? Those people will have demand, and there will be entrepreneurs and businesses that will gladly supply it because they will make money. That's how economics works.
Okay, all right. So let's kind of start wrapping it up. We're reaching about an hour talking about this thing, and it's great. But
supply and demand. The market's a beautiful thing. It solves a lot of problems. People don't have faith in it, and there's short-term pitfalls, but in the long run, I mean, just look at the last 200 years. We went from almost everybody being poor and working on farms to nobody fucking works on farms anymore, and everybody's...
There's a lot of people that work on farms, but there's
we went from 90+%
of course,
on farms to now I think it's like less than 2%.
Industrial revolution, all of that. But right now we're going through another major revolution too, and it's great. I mean, it's a great time to be alive and this is fascinating to me, and I will keep reading about it. But let me ask you, in your case, you said in the beginning of the podcast that one of the things that terrifies you is the fact that you may, in the future, find some kind of or have some kind of disease or something, and then you're fucked, you die or something, and then the day after they find a cure.
Cryogenics.
Yeah, okay.
That's my answer. I haven't done it yet. It's very expensive, but
explain to people what cryogenics is as far as the because I mean some people may think that is the sports or the injury treatment where you freeze your body in the chamber and
cryogenics is like you see in sci-fi movies, and what they say Walt Disney did. I don't think he actually did, but basically you freeze your body. There's companies that do this. You can Google it. Search freeze body.
There's one here in Disgusted, by the way.
Yeah, there is actually. They're one of the most popular in the country. Mm-hmm. Basically, all it is you pay this company. It's kind of like a life insurance where you pay them a monthly thing, and then you leave them like a large sum of money after you die. And basically, they have a little pod. It looks like a pod in like a spaceship or something. And when you die, they throw your body in there, and
first of all,
you're cryogenically preserved.
Right. I mean, first of all, you need to have somebody in the family notify, or somebody that is in your will or estate plan or something. Estate planning, just planning, they call them because they need to go and find your body in a certain condition after a short time after you pass away. Basically. Right.
If you die of a horrible accident, it's probably not going to work. But in most cases, like, okay, say, God forbid I get cancer and I'm going to die of cancer. Well, then I know ahead of time, and basically they're on standby. So the second I die, they take my body, put it in a chamber, and then 50 years from now, when we've cured cancer, they take me out and give me the cure. That's the idea.
So you come back in 50 years and you're like, where are my friends?
Hey, I don't care. I can make new friends.
And that's not a problem.
That's not a problem. People say that all the time. Oh, you have no friends. I didn't have any friends when I was born either. You make friends. I'll make new ones.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like that. All right, so that's your plan?
That's my plan. It's very expensive, so I need to save up for it. But
anything about living healthy and all these things that we talked about?
Yeah.
What about, you do some fasting, right?
I do. I mean, intermittent fasting.
I fast between breakfast and lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
About 3-4 hours in between.
Intermittent fasting, eat less sugar, you'll be better than 95% of the population.
Yeah, sugar is actually a killer. I mean, it's amazing how it's one of the things that if you were to do just one thing,
cut sugar, the biggest thing.
Decrease your sugar intake.
People don't realize this, and this is a whole other topic. I won't get into it, but you can Google it, and it's basically there's different types of sugar, but especially fructose. Basically, your body has no ability to process fructose. It's not glucose. Glucose is different. So when you hear high fructose corn syrup, when you hear you eat fruit, unfortunately, people think fruit is very good for you. It's all right. Fruit juices are not good for you. But basically, sugar and fructose especially is treated by your body the same way. And this is unbelievable. I was shocked when I first read this and read the studies, but it's treated in the same way as alcohol is. The only difference is sugar, fructose, does not pass the blood-brain barrier, meaning you don't get drunk from sugar. But as far as it going into your liver, right? When people get liver disease, it used to always be because you were a drunk and you drank a lot of alcohol and you get liver disease. And now there's a thing called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It's been developed, and it's an epidemic now because lots of people eat sugar and they get liver disease. And it's basically like when you would never let your kid drink, your 5-year-old kid drink a beer, but you let them eat all the candy you want. What you don't realize is, well, they're not getting drunk inside their body. It's actually having the same effect. That's the crazy
And the amazing thing is that even when people try to cut sugar from their diets,
it's addicting. It's very hard.
Well, it's addictive for one, but also it's very hidden in a lot of products.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like people think, oh, well, I'm going to just cut out drinking, sodas, and I used to have a big gulp in the morning or a Coke in the afternoon or some kind of soda or this and that, and or maybe donuts at the office, whatever. But then you don't realize you go to the store and you grab any type of box of processed food and you look at the nutritional content, every single piece of, even if you buy a sauce or dressing for your salad or something, everything has sugar. Everything has sugar.
The thing that kills me is, like, I don't drink sodas, but sometimes I don't feel like having water, especially at restaurants, because a lot of times they just give you tap water and it doesn't taste good. And so I'll get tea, but they only have sweet tea. And sweet tea has almost as much sugar as soda does.
And the same thing with juices. I mean, you say, okay, I'm going to go and have an orange juice or this juice or that juice. And then you look at the amount of sugar that is in the orange juice and you think you're eating healthy. Yeah, it's healthy in one way, but
it's not.
It's not.
I mean, you get some vitamins, but other than that, it's just sugar.
Exactly. But or even a box of, I don't know, like cereal, vinaigrette dressing. I mean, things like that. I mean, I'm looking at things that we have at home. And I'm a healthy eater for the most part.
Yeah, dressings.
Yeah.
A lot of people have salads, and they think they're eating healthy, but then they cover it in dressing, and you don't realize that dressing has 15 grams of sugar in it, and you just totally killed the salad.
Incredible. It's incredible when you add up. Not only that, then they say the serving size is like 1 teaspoon. Okay, who the fuck uses 1 teaspoon of dressing? I mean, I use 1 teaspoon in 1 crouton, and then I have 20 to go. So I mean, it's just crazy how as much as we try to have all this information about what we eat and other stuff and all these clear mark labels and stuff, they get away with all that shit because they don't tell you exactly what you're eating. And they give you this unreasonable serving size, like, oh yeah, I'm going to have a teaspoon of ranch dressing on my salad. What is that? I'm going to pour the bottle there and just make it like a nice dressing. So yeah, watch out for that stuff. Is really critical. And the good news is that with very few lifestyle changes, you can make a huge difference. And even if it's a little change that increases your biological age or lifespan, not increasing the age, but decreasing your age and increasing your lifespan by months, years or something, you will be so thankful as far as how you feel. It's not so much about living longer or whatever.
Yeah,
you can
just
do.
your current, how you feel.
It's just how you feel. It's just how you feel in the morning, the amount of energy you have.
I don't get sugar crashes anymore. I used to get that. When you have something with a lot of sugar, and then, or even a ton of carbs, and then later you kind of feel sleepy, low energy.
Right.
When you don't eat sugar and carbs, you don't feel that. It's a big difference, and it's something that you don't even realize until you cut that out. And I'm not saying it's like I still have sugar sometimes, but my day-to-day week, like especially during the work week, I have very little sugar. Only normally Saturdays are kind of like cheat days, and I don't go overboard. I prefer cheat meals than cheat days because a whole day is a lot. You can get a lot of bad stuff in one day, but if you have one little sweet treat once a week or something, it's not a big deal. But having sweets every single day is not good.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, this is enough for today. We promise next time we'll discuss some more marketing. I thought that was an interesting topic. I really like it. I'll add all the show notes at the end of the podcast when it's live. Remember, you can see all the information about this podcast on the actual podcast webpage, which is mgrunplugged.com, or you can also go to mgredge.com, where all the podcasts are listed. And then for each of them, we have a list of show notes and books that we discuss. This particular one, there's a couple of books that I'd like to mention that I will add to the show notes. One is the David Sinclair book, Why We Age, and the other one is another one that I read maybe about a month ago. It's called Hacking Darwin, and it's also a very good book, very, very good reading, a little less scientific and more practical, but both of them are very good. And then obviously there's tons of other podcasts and authors out there that have written about the subject, but it's something that is very interesting if you are kind of somehow concerned or working towards your healthy lifestyle, this is something that is easy to, it's fairly easy to implement with very little changes to your normal habits. So anyways, with all that said, we'll wrap it up now. Thank you, David, for joining me. Good luck with your next podcast, E-commerce Edge. I really like it. And for everybody else, we'll talk soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.